Greetings, fellow Siegers. Hero Siege Season 7 is officially set to launch on June 6th, bringing with it a wave of exciting new content. A brand new seasonal feature, powerful in-game bosses, an all-new class, reworked and newly added items, expanded blood pack support, hundreds of balance changes across all classes, and massive performance, anti-cheat, and server stability upgrades. And that's just the beginning. Be sure you mark your calendars, this season is shaping up to be a fun one. In today's video, I'll be walking you through a complete build guide. We'll cover everything that you need to know from pros and cons, leveling strategies, skill and sub-skill tree progression, attribute allocation, gearing recommendations for budget, mid-game, and end-game setups. I'll also break down optimal mercenary pairings, loot filter tips, and some helpful resources I've created to support you guys on your journey through the season. A full written version of this guide will be available on my website shortly after the video goes live, and as always, timestamps will be available for your convenience. If you're new here, I'm Graxy. I create ARPG-focused content with a strong emphasis on Hero Siege. My channel features build guides, game mechanic breakdowns, how-to tutorials, and content for both new and experienced players. If you enjoy this kind of content, consider subscribing to stay up to date with the latest Hero Siege news and guides. Your support, whether through a like, comment, or small donation, help keeps the channel going strong. Let's dive into it. This guide was created during the closed beta phase of Season 7 and is based on the content and mechanics available at that time. Please note that certain features, balance changes, or other game elements may be updated or modified as the game progresses towards its official release. The information presented here may not fully reflect the final version of the game, and some aspects could be subject to change. While I strive to provide accurate and effective build recommendations, future adjustments by the developers may impact the viability of certain strategies. Always refer to the official patch notes for the latest insights and information. Here we go on the Frag Grenade Marksman for Season 7. If you like your destruction loud, explosive, and precise, the Frag Grenade Marksman is a perfect build to lock and load in Hero Siege. This high-impact setup focuses on Frag Grenade, turning the Marksman into a demolition expert capable of wiping out entire screens of enemies with a single toss. With strong area of effect damage and solid mobility, this build really does thrive. In the guide, we're going to go through all the best skill choices, gear priorities, and combat strategies to help you blow through the ranks and leave nothing but craters in your wake. Get ready to aim, throw, and detonate your way to victory. All right, let's check out the pros and cons of our Frag Grenade Marksman. First, you can level with your main skill level 1. You get Frag Grenade right at the start of the game. Frag Grenade can shotgun. It's insane for bossing potential. You just throw that shit underneath bosses and all this shrapnel and everything can shotgun. It's really nice. You have a built-in movement skill called Vault. You also get that at level 1. Insane. Best debuff skill in the game. One of them, you get Cannon Turret. This makes monsters take 105. I'll repeat that. 105% increased damage from all sources, not just you, from all sources. It's insane. Best buff or debuff in the game for group play. You also get free damage scaling with burns through gunner drones. We're going to be using gunner drones to proc burns on enemies, and we can take advantage of that severely in the next season. Now, there are some cons to the build. You do not really have any defensive or passive skills built in. There's also not really much sustain for the build. Early hell mapping damage isn't OP, but it is good, and the screen clutter can be a little bit annoying. You can't turn it down, but it is definitely a screen clutter build with shrapnel going everywhere. The build revolves around a set and is practically mandatory late game. There is a rework to the tactical set, and we will be using that in the late game. We'll talk about that whenever we get into the mid game section, but that is pretty much mandatory for the build to function the way that you'd want it to. So looking at our skill trees, we're going to talk about how we level this build. From level 1 to 7, again, we start with Frag Grenade. We get that at level 1. So we're going to dump all of our points into it, give it as much damage as we can. We're going to use this all the way up until two options, either 16, where we can swap into Cannon Turret, or 40, when we can swap into Gunner Drones. Either of these is up to you. You could actually swap into Gunner Drones as early as level 30 if you would like to. It really just kind of depends on how you feel. Respecking is completely free. They are all arcane related skills. So you can switch between them anytime. It's really not going to make much of a difference. The only big thing that you might notice on Frag Grenade is it is a cast skill. It doesn't really have a cooldown to it versus like Gunner Drone has a little bit of a cooldown. You kind of cast it and go. Cannons, you kind of cast them and go. Frag Grenade is something that you have to continuously apply yourself. You have to continue casting it, so you will need some mana sustain in order to keep that going. Versus the other two skills, you won't have to do that. So that level 30, jumping into Gunner Drone off the bat, might not be a terrible idea just because it could be a little bit easier to get through. But we'll talk about that kind of how as we go through here. So levels 1 through 7, dump all your points into Frag Grenade.
Also put 1 point into Vault. This is going to be your movement skill. It's fantastic. You will fall in love with it. At level 8, we're going to balance our points between Frag Grenade and Landmine. This is going to give a Frag Grenade additional damage without actually putting points into it, because the Landmine, you can see, is a 15% arcane damage per level synergy. So that's going to be great for giving that additional damage without increasing its mana cost. And mana is a very big resource early in the game. So you want to try and get as much of that as you can by putting points in energy, getting mana on charms, that sort of thing. It'll help you a lot in that early game, especially for bossing. Now, if you're having trouble with Gurag at level 16, you can swap into Cannon Turret, right? We're going to put 1 point into that. This will also be a synergy for us. We're going to put 1 point into Agility. This is going to be a movement speed active. And then we'll put the rest of our points between Frag Grenade and Landmine. Again, if you are having trouble with Gurag, you can respec this tree. You'll put all your points into Cannon Turret and some of the synergies, and you can use that to kill Gurag with. It's a great single target skill. At level 24, we continue dumping our points between Frag Grenade and Frag Grenade and Landmine. You can, at this point, continue playing with Cannon Turret. It's a totally viable option. You'll just dump a bunch of Cannon Turrets on top of elites and run. It's a really cool thing about the turrets is they have their own attack animation, but if you continue casting them, you kind of skip the animation, because every time you cast a turret next to a monster, it instantly fires. So you kind of bypass that internal cooldown for the turret's attack speed. It's completely up to you. You can go that route as well. Both of these will work. And then at level 30, you are welcome to spec into those gunner drones. We are definitely going to be doing that at level 40. We're going to swap into the gunner drone. If you choose to continue leveling with the Frag Grenade, you can. You're just going to continue maxing its synergies. But for our gunner drone tree, you can see here, we dump 20 points into gunner drone. We go 11 points into Master Mechanic. This is going to be an active that gives the gunner drone additional juice. And then we put 1 point into Cannon Turret, 1 point into Homing Missile over here, 1 point into Frag Grenade. These are all synergies. And then from here, we're going to continue maxing our Turret Mastery just to give it more attack speed, right? Now, there's a specific augment that we care about on Gunner Drone. I'm going to show that right now just because while you're leveling, you kind of want to pay attention to this, right? It's this one up here. It's not this one. It's this top left one. This is the augment that you want to use when you're leveling with Gunner Drone. It's really freaking good. Doesn't require you to have attack speed. It beams lasers on monsters around you. Has a ton of damage. It's great. All you have to do from there is stack a ton of drones. So you see this node down here will give you additional drones. Put 8 points into this. Get as many drones out as you can, and be sure you have, on your level 40, your level 70, your level 100 augments that you're dumping points into the augment, and you will coast through leveling. If you want to continue leveling with Frag Grenade, I do have the level 70 tree here. This will show you what Frag Grenade looks like. You're going to continue putting points into that. You'll put points into Landmine. You basically Frag Grenade and all of its synergies. And then at level 100, here's our full Frag Grenade tree. Again, Frag Grenade, all of its synergies, and make sure that we put a point into Agility. This is going to give us additional movement speed on a buff, on a passive that we can just click. And then from here, we don't really have a whole lot of juice that we can do. I put all my points into the crit damage mastery. This does not apply until extremely late game, right? These 14 points here will do nothing until you have auto gloves, which are angelic gloves in the end game. The rest of these points, you can do whatever you want with them. You can put them into Agility. You can put them into Beacon. You can put them into Gunner Drone more if you want to. There's really not a good option for them. So that's where we have them right now. Now, if you don't know what sub skill trees are, they were new in season 5. They basically allow you to spec the tree out a little bit more. Kind of showed it a second ago. It gets your skill a bit more juice. So for Frag Grenade, this tree is going to go for max AoE and maximum projectiles. And then if you want to go for maximum damage through increased damage to burning targets, this is the tree that you would want to use. So on your second loadout, I would recommend having this Frag Grenade set up good to go for your single target. And then this is what you will use when you are farming. And speaking of Gunner Drone, just to show you what that would look like, this tree is your Gunner Drone tree for maximum damage. So we're using this to apply burns, right? So we take a bunch of points over here to give it a chain. and it's going to bounce to a bunch of targets, which is great for us. We get a couple of extra projectiles, so when it fires, it'll hit everything. It's not going to really do any damage. But then over here on the far right, we have all this chance to inflict burn, and it's going to burn everything. It's great. Here's Vault. This is what we're going to use to move around with. To be honest with you, this skill is great, but it kind of pisses me off when you get too much juice on it. So down here, we're going to get Vault Length, and up here, you get Vault Time. Personally, I only like going like maybe, enough length and then maybe 1 point up here. I usually don't go max here just because it gets annoying sometimes. Like it's almost too much Vault. So kind of play around with that and find out if I'm just crazy. But that's what I usually do. And then for Cannonball Turret, this far right node is really what we care about here. This is going to give us our 105% increased damage to targets. So, the debuff on monsters to take additional damage from all sources. Fantastic. Give it some more AoE, get some more turrets, do whatever you want with it. But the main thing is you just get 3 points here and proc on a boss. For attribute allocation, we want to put 2 points intelligence, 2 points vitality, enough energy to feel comfortable, especially in those very first levels, like levels 1 through 5. Getting some energy can make quite a big difference in that very, very beginning. And then from there, start putting points into end to get some damage and vitality so you're not dying in 1 or 2 hits. In the end game, we are going to be a full intelligence character, which is as much damage as we can. And you can start kind of feeling that out when you want to make that change. Again, respecing your attributes is completely free. So if you feel like you're not doing enough damage, maybe drop your life a little bit. If you feel like you're doing more than enough damage, maybe get a bit more survivability, however you want to work it out. But in the end game, you do want to be full int. You should have more than enough life. For gearing, this section is designed just to give you workable suggestions on what gear to acquire at different stages of the game. We have gear for leveling, we have budget, mid-game, end-game options, all here in the written guide, and it'll be available on the website. So first, we're going to look at leveling from 1 to 100. At this point, there's really no specific items that we're going for. I can't guarantee that you're going to drop any specific satanic. I'm not going to tell you to go farm any satanics in Act 1 normal. That's crazy. You're just going to be wasting your time. However, there are rune words that if you find the bases for, I want you to be aware of. So if you see, oh shit, I found a 2-socket base for boots, you can make quick steps in that. That can be such a big difference in your overall run speed and your clear speed through the campaign. So let's talk about our leveling gear first. On normal through mythic items, we are looking for things like arcane skills, arcane skill damage. This is flat damage to arcane spells. Very, very strong. Magic skill damage, arcane skill damage percentages, movement speed, faster cast rate. If you're casting more, you're doing more damage. Life and mana on kill, intelligence, energy to be able to sustain your mana pool. All of these things are important to find on mythic items, or normal through mythic items on every single gear piece, charms, everything. This is the bread and butter of being able to level, is finding these specific stats. And I have this listed on every single item type here, just to give you an idea of what you can find on different pieces of gear. If you want to, because some people don't know that you can get like movement speed on shields and movement speed on chests and things like that. So I have all that listed out for you. But the main thing are just the damage types and how to get the damage on your items, and it's through things like arcane skills, flat skill damage percentages, that sort of thing. So be looking for these on your normal through mythic items. This will greatly help you. Don't need any satanics to get through the game. Now there are some rune words that are shown in here as well, so if you scroll down on each of these, you can see weapons. We have Sky Song. Offhands, we have Sky Song or Divine Contemplation. Helmets, you can go for Scholar. Chests, we can go for Shadow or Angle Oxawano. Angle Oxawano on a chest is so much damn damage for just a Delum. Hell, you get these runes for free. Even in normal, you'll have these runes. Up to 4 skills, arcane skill damage, pen, faster cast rate, everything that you would want. Really good chest. For boots, we have things like Quick Steps or Ghosts. Quick Steps is going to give you the most amount of movement speed. Ghost will let you be able to phase. However, you do have to get lucky on that Mal rune. So all of these are going to be really good early rune words to pick up. But again, it's not about getting the runes. It's about finding the base. Once you hit level 100, let's talk about our budget gear. There's really no best in slot gear here. A lot of items can honestly be swapped out for good mythics. You can find some skiller mythics and stuff like that. but I do want to give you some examples and some options of items to be looking out for to make your early game a bit easier. So the first thing is we do have the Thor set. I don't see this used a whole lot. It is the Paladin Thor set. This will work on the Marksman. But this has a pretty good set bonus to it. And it has a pretty good just overall, like, you know, you've got arcane skills. Overall, pretty good. So let's take a look at the example here. I actually do show an example of me wearing the Thor set. I have charms and I have a crematorium shield, right? Which is going to give some extra damage to burning monsters, and we can see what our damage would look like with that. We also have a rune word charms and crematorium setup and showing kind of what that damage would look like. And then we also show what that Thor set with charms and the crematoriums would look like for single target. You can see how much that is actually shotgunning on that monster. It's quite powerful. So in the budget section, we do have a ton of other options in terms of gearing that you could definitely go for. Things like Sky Song, Divinity, Celestis, Spirit Walker Guide. Any of these weapons will be perfectly fine. I prefer going with the Divinity. It's going to be, you know, just an all-rounder for skills, faster cast rate. You get a bunch of all resistance. Offhand, Sky Song, really good skills. You get a bunch of FCR. Divine Contemplation, it can be really nice if you're having trouble with resistances. You get a shitload on it. Gem and Crested Tower also gets a shitload of resistance. You also get physical and magical damage reduction, life, vitality, up to 6 sockets, tons of stuff there. And then Rift Eye can give you a lot of mana. So if you're having issues early on with mana, you're not able to sustain throwing your frag grenades, this gives you up to 1250 mana. You also get 4 sockets on this, arcane skill damage, a ton of skills, up to 5 skills, and FCR. It's actually kind of an insane shield, to be honest with you. So that could be a good option if you're just having a lot of mana problems. For helmets, you're probably wearing a Scholar. Super easy to get one. You can drop that pretty quickly. Crown of the Midnight, Created Secrets, Witch's Brimmed Hat, Delirium, uses a Vex, not too expensive to make. This gets up to 8 skills. This is probably the most damage, but honestly, I've done a lot of helmet swaps, and the difference between a Crown of the Midnight and a Deli is not much, right? And the same goes for Witch's Brim Hat, because you also get penetration, which is really nice. And honestly, Created Secrets gives you that 40 FCR. That's really important on builds that have some sort of movement or that are casting a lot, because the more that you're casting or the more FCR that you have, the better your build's going to feel, right? You're not going to be locked into animations too much. You're going to feel like you can move around a little bit more, especially if we get into a situation where we are able to get like a Shroud of Enigma that allows us to teleport early on. That can be huge for being able to move around quickly. Now, for chest pieces, we have Angel-Oxawana. I was talking about that earlier. Fantastic chest. Gives you a ton of skills, pen, arcane skill damage, faster cast rate, everything that we'd want in a chest that is there. If you're having trouble with resistances, you can go with a Gladstone Goose. This gives you up to 52 all resistance. I know this is 65. It was nerfed a little bit. So yeah, you also get physical damage reduction. You can find plus skills on rune word bases. You can find like a +3 rune word base that has 4 sockets on it and body armor. Put these runes in there, and now you have a Gladstone Goose that has +3 skills on it. You can do the same thing with Angel-Oxawana. You can have a plus math here. You have a +9 Angel-Oxawana if you found a +5 base. So things like that. Heaven's Might is also really strong. Tons of damage reduction, vitality, Grand Wizards, Lichbane, any of these will serve you just fine. For gloves, Conjured, Mitts, Anubises, Meviuses, Wisdom Holds, Sorcerer Surge Glyphs, all these are great. Personally, I would say Wisdom Holds gonna be ahead of most of the pack here, because you get the FCR, you kind of get a little bit of everything here. Meviuses can roll with arcane skills, so this can be a really good option too, just with everything on it. For boots, we have Quick Steps, fastest movement speed boots. I would recommend that you go into Ghost, however, just because you kind of have Vault to be able to move around with. This will also give you phasing. Phasing is great. I love phasing. You just run through mobs. It also allows you to position yourself in a way where you can get all of your bombs onto mobs correctly, while like being able to run through them versus trying to jump and like get in the middle of the pack. Essentially, can be a little annoying. So that's what I would recommend. You also get skills on it. For belts, we have Viper Magi, Knight's Girdle, Commander Sash, Dash of the Magi. My favorite here is probably Commander Sash. You just get so much for it, right? You get skilled, you get all resistance, you get physical damage reduction, you get some sustain. It's kind of geared more towards an attack character, but I just like the belt. You could also go Sash of the Magi, tons of Master Caster Rate and magic skill damage. You get a mana pool aura. This will help with your mana sustain a lot, gives you a bunch of replenish. So completely up to you. For rings, Koto's wedding bands got buffed, and so did Elven Graces. Elven Graces aren't really ideal. The crit and crit damage is going to do nothing for the build, but the +2 will still help. So if you're going through your gameplay and you drop a +2 Elven Grace, you might as well use it because it is a decent option just for the skills, right? Otherwise, you probably want to get Koto wedding bands. You give up to 40% movement speed. That's been buffed, by the way, and a ton of life, 2 skills, just fantastic. You can't go Satanic Eyes. He's gives up to 30% all resistance. This will really help you round out your res if you're having trouble. And Iron Ring of Prometheus. If you're not having trouble with any of your reses and you feel good, you can get a ton of cast rate. You get magic skill damage, magic find, be able to find some items early. Iron Ring of Prometheus is one of my favorite early items. For amulets, Dark Lord Sigil is my go-to. Always has been. You can slam the shit out of them. Try and get some crazy slams on your Dark Lords. But Shining Pearl can be a good option. Spirit Pendant can give you a ton of res. All Seeing Eye with 3 skills. Magic Find, a good option if you're just wanting to get a bunch of Magic Find early on. For charms, there's a lot of charms. Do not forget about your charms. They're so damn important. You can get all of your life on them. You can get magic skill damage. You can get resistances. You can get enhanced defense. I don't see enough people care about their defense. You can get sustain. There's lots of things that you can get on your charms to really help round out the build. But there are also a bunch of satanic charms that are in this early hell one that you could drop, or just this early budget time that you could pick up. I have all of these listed out here. Be sure you kind of look through them. One of my favorite ones here is actually Tallest Death Skull, because you just get so much life and mana. 450 of both is crazy to have early in the game. So any of these will be solid pickups. Also, Damien's Cage. I don't see enough people know about Damien's Cage or the Canopic Jar. Damien's Cage, 4 skills, up to 45 int, and then some additional arcane skill damage. And the Canopic Jar gives you up to 25% penge, and you get flat damage. That's crazy. That's actually crazy. Okay. With that being said, we're going to move on to mid-game. So, in order to scale an Arcane Caster, I have an entire written doc here. This will be obviously in the written guide. It'll be on the website. If you're having trouble scaling your character, read this. It'll give you an understanding of maybe what you're doing wrong, or some different stats that maybe you're missing in your build, just to give you an idea of where to go. Now, we do have some setups for AoE and single target that we're going to go through, and then we'll give you some additional options for these slots. But this is the setups that I used in my testing. So the very first one is our AoE. We have no Inferno, no Angelic items. You can see we're using just an Azure sword. We do have the reworked Tac Flask chest. I don't think this is going to be a super bad drop rate, but it is an SS tier now. And we have its pairing. This is a new item. It's an SS Charm. It's a grenade. So these two together is a set. We also have teleport. We have our Celestials Authority. Celestials is a little bit of a low drop rate, but it does give us an absolute shitload of pen, and it can be farmed in Hell 5 technically. So Stalfix weapon on the upgrade down here is insane. You can see the damage difference between and having and not having the Stalfix, as well as the Lilith. Lilith gives you up to 10% extra damage to burning monsters, and again, we get burn for free because of our gunner drone, so we want to look for sources of burn. Now, one thing in here that you could switch that I was testing, these Astral Roamers, these can be found from the Rogue Chaos Towers in the Codex of Chaos, right? There's one for each element type. These are the astral ones. These give you arcane skills, damage to monsters that are inflicted with shadow burning. We don't really have shadow burning. You could swap these out for these scorching boots. They'll give you fire skills, but you get up to 50% extra damage to burning monsters. And I think that ultimately will beat out astrals, especially as you get more and more damage. getting extra and multiplying that damage is a much bigger multiplier than just adding more like skill damage. So there's something to keep in mind. I do believe we talk about that in the mid-game section items, but I just wanted to mention it now. Now we did add the Inferno items in, right? So we have like Girdle, we have Arcanus Ring, we have Chaos Walkers, right? Tons of items that we added in here just kind of show what that damage looks like. We are also wearing Sheep. And then we added some GG charms into it as well. Now for a single target, same thing. It's the exact same setup as before. However, we just showed on a single target. Okay, so let's check out some other options that we can go here in the mid game. Again, Divinity Celestis, you can make these on plus skill bases. Generally speaking, in the start of the game, you're not getting plus skill bases. Like you might get lucky and find like based on level or something, but you could get some additional damage by just finding a +4 or +5 base for your Divinity or Celestis. Archangel's Phase Blade is a budget Dawnbringer, and Sophix's Cleaver is really our best in slot with the Celestial Shield. So I would at this point be looking for those soft cooking cleavers if you're in trade. Also down here we have Gabriel's Retribution and Rift Masters. These aren't the best items, but they offer an absolute shitload of arcane skill damage, like flat arcane skill damage. So I have these in here as just options. If you happen to just drop one, or maybe somebody gives you one, you could actually use these because of the skills and the arcane skill damage that they provide is actually kind of nasty. Okay, for offhand, Celestial Authority, best in slot. For the pen that we get for it and the damage conversion, but there are some other options. You can go for like a Justice, right? This gives you a bunch of skills. You can put this on a +4 +5 base, get a ton of skills on it. You also get magic skill damage reduction, a ton of resistances, a decent option. Suomi also coming in with 4 skills. You get a ton of faster cast rate. Again, more casting is good for bilge. And we get up to 40% all resistance and 6 sockets that we can socket Chaos Gems into, or more runes for resistance, whatever you need to do. Same thing for Ancient Ages, same thing for Gem of Crescent Tower, just really good tanky shields. And there's also Crematorium's Pledge. This gives you up to 60% extra damage to burning monsters. You can make this again on a skills base. You can get 7 skills, a ton of extra damage to burning monsters. This shield is actually not too bad because you get life and mana increased by 10-20%. You get a ton of all resistance, you get fire resistance. Actually quite a crack shield. I would say this would most likely beat out things like probably beat out all 4 of these, right? Maybe not Suomi, but definitely these 3 would be a lower option in terms of damage in Crematoriums, just because of the extra damage to burning monsters. For helmets, Side of the God's going to have a ton of value here, being able to teleport. I know you do have Vault, but Vault does get a little annoying not being able to, it goes over terrain, but it's kind of finicky at times, right? Just being able to teleport quickly it just feels so good. I personally prefer it, but there are some other options here. You could go with a Harley Quinn Veil, tons of damage reduction, Magic Find, all resistance, Delirium. You can make this on a +5 base. This now would have up to 13 skills on it. Very solid option for a helm. Curses, this rolls a random skill element, so you'd have to roll this specific one, but this is going to be a decent option as well. And then lastly, we have a new item, Dragon Knight's Helmet. This thing comes from Andrixia. She is a new boss in the Ruby Gardens, and this helmet will not only give us skills, but it gives us up to 40% extra damage to burning monsters. Absolutely insane. You also have 4 sockets on here. You can add whatever you need into it. But again, we get burning for free with our gunner drone, so this actually does provide us a lot of value. All right, looking at our chest, we do have Enigma. If you wanted to run the Andrixia helmet and you wanted a source of teleport, you could run Enigma. Try to find a plus skill space for this, just gives you more damage. Gem King's Garb is kind of insane for damage, right? It's probably the most damage out of anything here. So you get 6 skills, 120 arcane skill damage, a ton of percent skill damage. Like everything about it is crazy. Azarius, this is good for hardcore if you want to have some damage reduction. But you're ultimately going to want to get into a Tac Flak Jacket. This is your new set, right? You can kind of read through what this does. This gives your grenades a chance to double throw, gives you additional projectiles, right? As well as it's going to give you plus skills to frag grenade. But mainly this Demolition Expert being able to get additional projectiles on a 30% proc chance, pretty crazy. Very, very nice to have. For gloves, Arcanums are generally best in slot, but there are a few other options here. Fighter Magi's, Shadow Cultists can be farmed from Sun Glee, Spell Weavers are cheap. These are all pretty cheap, and these can be farmed, but ultimately you're going to want Arcanums at this point. That Ominous Aura is just such a strong aura. And you also get faster cast rate, you get explosion damage, you are using explosion skill, you also get arcane skill damage, you get everything. You get everything on these gloves. They're fantastic. For boots, the new Rogue Chaos Tower boots are the OP cracked boots. You're going to want them. As I mentioned before, there's two options here. The first is Astral Roamers. These are going to give you the most arcane skills, the skill damage. They get up to 4 sockets, right? These can be fantastic. Most likely, the Scorching Roamers are going to be more damage just because of the extra damage of burning. You still get the 4 sockets, so you lose out on quite a bit here, but you gain a lot from extra damage. So it might be a situation where you're just going to have to kind of math it out or get both and test which one ends up being better for you at which particular time. It depends on your gear level, right? If you have kind of like a lower mid game going on, Astrals are probably better. But if you're like juicing out, you got charms, you got a lot of heroics on, you're most likely going to be doing way better with the extra damage. And then if you don't have any of these options available, you can go for Fumas, Aetherwalks, Prolapsing Dreams. These are all good options to get on your boot slot. For belts, Rugal's very, very strong. You get pin, you get damage reduction, you get all res. Very nice. You can also go for a Cunnilingus. These can roll skills on them for Marksman. You could slam some crazy stuff on this, so that could be an option, as well as if you're farming Uber Damien or you're going for Uber Gabriel and you're farming Uber Damien to get souls and stuff. You can drop some pretty crazy sashes, could work here. Ultimately, you're going to want a girdle. If you have access to the auction house or if you have Inferno access, try and farm out yourself a girdle. It'll make a big difference in your survivability, as well as you can get one with arcane skills on it, which is fantastic. For rings, your boss rings are in Inferno difficulty. Once again, if you have Auction House or Inferno difficulty, just go farm out your boss rings. If you can't get to those, your other options are going to be slamming Kodo Wedding Bands or Elven Graces or any of your S tier Satanics and trying to get sockets, cast rate, skills, any of those sorts of things on top of those rings to beef up those S tier rings. The other option would be Azazels. You can actually get Azazels in Hell difficulty. It's just quite rare. And then you'll have to go farm out the Soul Gem for it. And then if you get the Soul Gem for it, you're going to have to go farm out a Recall Ritual Band so that you can mirror it, because you're going to get the Recall before you get a second one, most likely. So, but these are basically stronger or as strong as Arcanist rings. So that is a good option. And then we also have a Soulforge ring. This can be farmed out through questing. A lot of people hate this quest. It takes about a day to do this quest, but this can be an okay option as well. These can also be slammed, so you can get some extra juice on the Soulforge ring. For amulets, all of these are good options. You can farm Uber Damien for the Terethios Falls. Terethios Falls can get some crazy stuff on them. There is also Thoth's Agony. This has been reworked, right? You can see we get intelligence converted into magic skill damage. We get up to 75 intelligence on top of that. We also get a socket. We get skills. There's a ton of stuff on this. This is farmed from Amon Ra. Steve's Necklace, up to 100 all attributes, and you get physical damage and magic damage reduction with the 15 all res. And Philosopher's Stone. Philosopher's Stone now goes up to 5 skills, right? With the all res and the attributes. So really nice. And last but not least, we have our charms. Ton of charm options here. I mean, it's really just going to come down to getting lucky and just dropping some of these charms. Some of these are going to be quite expensive. Probably the most important one here, I would say maybe Moonshard. It depends on if you're wearing a Celestial's Authority or not, because Celestials gives you 60 pen. So if you're not wearing the Celestials, Moonshard is going to be really strong because you do get up to 35 pen on there, and pen is really important in order to push into the higher difficulties. Outside of that, your Tidal of the Awakening, if you happen to find like a 2 or 3 socket one, you could dump a bunch of runes in there to give yourself some resistances. Otherwise, you're most likely going to be dumping either Chaos Gems or Elemental Gems into it, just to get the attributes or the magic skill damage. And then if you scroll down, there's going to be some more charms available here. You probably saw a lot of these in the budget section. There are still good options to wear even now, so I do have those listed in the mid-game. Now moving on to our end game, a lot of possibilities here. They added satanic crystals back in season 6 for being able to slam items. So some of these builds can get absolutely crazy with some of the slams. So ultimately, the best build is the one that does work for you. But I do have some examples that I'm going to be showing you here today. Remember that the shrapnel from Frag grenade can shotgun, and you want to be able to take advantage of that. I also kind of show what the tac flak does. We need to make sure that we have that set on. It gives us so much value. +1 to smart fuse. It doesn't actually talk about what that does, but +1 to smart fuse makes it so that whenever you throw your grenades and they hit a monster, they explode instantly on impact. That's what makes this so important. Now let's take a look at our gearing here. So for my end game, we are wearing a sheep helmet. We can swap that out for the Endrixia helmet. That's going to give us up to 40% extra damage. I found that the Sheep King, I really like it. It's just everything about the helmet has a lot of juice on it. It just made the build feel way better, rounded it out a little bit better. But the better damage option would technically be the Endrixia helmet. We are running Soflixes. We have the Tac Flak. We have a Sheep King, or excuse me, we have a Steve. We have Celestials. The biggest thing that we are upgrading to here is St. Otto's gloves. St. Otto's gloves are absolutely insane for casters. You know, the crit chance that you get from the gloves, the crit chance that you get from the passive critical accuracy in the Marksman tree, you get crit damage on this belt. All that stuff stacks up to give us increased damage. It's actually kind of crazy. So you can see we're pretty geared out here and what our damage looks like on both AoE and single target situations. You don't have to have St. Otto's. They are, you know, quite rare. They're going to be expensive this season. You don't have to have them. Here's kind of what that exact same setup looks like without them on. And that is our single target. For relics, here's what we're going to be using. Bible, Triforce, Lost Wand, Magic Mushroom. Pretty standard, pretty staple. Relics, there are some other options that you could go if you would like to. You could also go for some stuff that's a bit more utility based or maybe offers you, additional life or mana, whatever it may be. But these are the ones that I would recommend that you use. Now for potions, super important that we get this potion down here. This is caffeinated coffee container. This is going to give us increased damage to burning targets. Very, very important. We get that free burn from our drones. Don't forget about that. Then from there, you can kind of decide what you want to get. I like empty bottle of vodka. This gives you up to +5 skills. I also like running the wizard potion. This gives you a bunch of cast rate. Ghostly potion will give you magic skill damage. You can kind of peek through which of those work best for you and apply them to your build. And lastly, we have our chest augments. Monstrosity is going to be the most damage, especially the upfront damage. You just get so much magic skill damage from it. But if you want to have a bit more a quality of life, you can go for Spellslinger. This is going to give you increased cast rate for a portion of your magic skill damage. And we get a decent amount on this build, so that will help a lot with being able to teleport around and maneuver around a bit quicker. Now, there is Survivor Shield. This is a good option if you're in hardcore. This will make it so that if you get to 35% of your maximum life, you're going to become immune to all damage and you heal for a short period. So that's just really nice to have as a no shit. Alrighty, let's talk about mercenaries. Currently in season 7, mercenaries generally only have one purpose. They're just magic find warbots. Mercenaries magic find is applied to your on kill magic find. So if you were to take a magic find item and throw it on your mercenary and open up your character screen, you'll see under the magic find section that number didn't go up. But if you select mercenary and then look at that magic find value, it did go up. That value is applied to kills that you get on your character. Even though it doesn't show in the actual character section, this is just to show you the difference between the magic find that you have on your actual character and the magic find that you have on your mercenary. So you want to be stacking as much magic find as you can possibly get on this mercenary. I cannot stress this enough how important this is. People will come into my stream, they'll message me on Discord, they'll ask in Discord chat, just everywhere. Hey bro, I'm having a hard time finding items. What do you suggest? And I'll ask them, yo, what's your mercenary look like? And they will have either no items, just no mercenary at all. Now in Hero Siege, there are 3 mercs, Act 1, Act 3, and Act 6. We do not use the Act 6 merc most of the time. It just doesn't offer enough utility. You get some arcane break on it and it can randomly give you a shield, which is cool. But it just doesn't offer the same utility of the Act 1 and the Act 3 mercs do. So Act 1 merc can generally get the most magic find as it's a sword and board class. So you have just more socket availability to put more magic find in, as well as they have good supporting items for magic find in those slots. but they're going to have a lower level of fanaticism if you are trying to go for that, if you're aiming to go for fanaticism on your character, if attack speed applies to you. The Act 3 Merc can use bows, so this is going to leave us in a situation where we have a little bit less sockets, and there's not really a whole lot of bows in the game that provide magic find. And again, we are going to be most likely using the fanaticism bow just to get as much attack speed for our character as we can. The other nice thing about the Act 3 Mercenary is you can get a proc from her that'll give you 100% attack speed. This is really, really nice whenever you're maybe fighting a boss. 100% attack speed is no joke. And if you're a caster character, just go the Act 1 Merc. Here's a list of some different weapons for your Mercenary. These are all just going to depend on whether you're taking the Act 1 or the Act 3 Mercenary. Again, Act 3 Mercenary cannot wear maces. It's a bow character, so the Sacred Whip, the Ceremonial Dagger, and the Death Smear, you'll have to use those on the Act 1 Mercenary. But you can use the Valkyrie. That's a really nice bow with fanaticism on it. Otherwise, just honestly throw any bow that you can because the Mercenary doesn't do damage anyway. And then for the Act 1 Merc, we also have Aurora's Might. This can give us Lunar Aura. This is a ton of resistances. Very nice to have early on to tap those resistances. Otherwise, just pick any of these options. Death Smear is probably going to be the most expensive. Throw as many Istrunes in there as you can. This will give you a ton of early magic find. Same thing for chests. These are just different levels of magic find. So Uppies, Mystic Allure, Heaven's Might, Empires, Military Plate. All these have magic find on them. Heaven's Might technically doesn't, but it does have 6 sockets. You could throw 6 discs in here if you wanted to, as well as you can see that you get a ton of physical damage and magical damage reduction on the Heaven's Might. Very, very nice chest. And then I did list out a couple of tankier chests like Leviathan's Carcass and Nazarius's. These offer a ton of damage reduction. You can see Leviathan's 1,000 life and 23% life increase. 6 sockets, you could throw a bunch of Isrune in there. Same thing for Azarius, you get damage reduction, you get the all res. The very tanky chest pieces that you could throw on your Mercenary to try to get him to survive some of those hits in Inferno and even some of the Ubers in Hell 5. Same thing applies to helmets. Here's some different levels of Magic Find helmets. You also get physical and magical damage reduction and up to 30% all res on a Harley Quinn. Very nice helmet for your Mercenary. And lastly, the offhands, once again, just different levels of magic find. Leprechaun's Greet is an SS tier. It's going to be the most expensive, the most rare. However, you can find a novice tower. This thing's insane for just being an S tier. You have a increased magic find roll. You have an increased magic find based on level. You also have up to 4 sockets to put Is in it. That is a ton of magic find for an S tier. Again, socket any of these with a bunch of Is runes. Is are honestly quite common, so it's not going to hurt you to pick up some of these items early and then swap into different ones later on. Because our goal is to get magic find on our Mercenary as quick as we can. After hitting level 100, hero levels and hero seeds can offer some significant power boosts, but which nodes do you take first? Knowing which nodes to prioritize can make a big difference. There are several effective strategies for optimizing your hero level tree, depending on your character's current progression and gear. This section includes a detailed written guide outlining popular approaches used by the community. If you prefer a visual walkthrough, I do have a YouTube video available with full timestamps. And just to give you a quick scroll through of kind of what that written guide looks like, we go through all the different setups that are available, whether you're an attacker or a caster, and what that would look like if you tried to prioritize certain things and why you might prioritize certain nodes over others. After level 100, glyphs can be socketed into your hero level tree and offer additional utility to enhance your gameplay. Currently, glyphs do not provide direct player power, making their selection entirely preference-based, depending on the content that you wish to engage with. I do have a full YouTube video that describes how glyphs work, so you can get a bit more information if you're not sure what glyphs look like, how to level them up. If you scroll down on this guide, you will find additional information. This will show you every glyph at their level 0, 6, and 8 value, as well as it'll tell you how much it increases by per allocated attribute in its range, its current attribute type, and a description. Alrighty, let's talk loot filters and more specifically leak start filters. Now, I'm gonna be pretty blunt about this because I want to make sure that I get my point across so that it's clear. I cannot make loot filters before Season 7's patch actually hits the game. I can't do it in Season 7 beta. I can't do it in the Season 6 client. There is no way that myself or anybody can get you a filter before the season starts for the most part. Now, I did make a video in Season 6 that talks about the loot filter, highlight filters for any class in the game for starters. There is technically a way to set it up before the season starts because the patch actually hits about an hour before the game goes live. So there's single player, you can jump into single player on the new season and you can quickly make a filter and put those on a notepad, whatever you need to do, and then just import them whenever the season actually starts. So I do have a full video explaining how all of that works and what you will need to do. So if you're not sure how that works, be sure you check out that video. And then of course I do have the full written guide that explains every single archetype and what I put on each of those archetypes so that you can kind of practice. You can jump into season 6, pretend that it's, league start day, make your filter really fast. You can get familiar with where everything is at. And it's honestly quite easy. Now, if you're a newer player, you're just not really sure how the loot filters work. Loot filters in Hero Siege are not Path of Exile filters, right? They're not going to hide 95% of the items on the ground. You're not going to start seeing that until you get later into the game. So you are going to still see quite a bit of items when you first start the game, and it's going to feel like the loot filter is not working, but it is. As well as the highlight filter is the main part of the loot filter. The highlight part is actually highlighting affixes on items that you care about. Right, so whenever you're playing through the game, you'll see this giant beam, and I don't know what color it is. I think it's orange. It'll be like an orange beam and an orange highlighted item. You'll be like, oh, that's highlighted. I should probably pick that up. Yes, it's because your highlight filter is highlighting that item. So the highlight filter is very, very important. The loot side of it, not as big of a deal. If you don't want to do all of that for your starter filter, there are in-game presets that you can use for both the filter and the highlight section. So you're simply just going to click Escape, Options, Gameplay, and Loot Filter. This is going to make your screen look like this right here. On the right side, you can see all the highlight presets and the different archetypes, like if you're playing a physical attacker, or you're playing a cold caster, or an arcane caster, or a life stacker, or any of that stuff. All of that will be in here. You can just click on it and go, right? Same thing for the loot side of it on the left. If you're in normal difficulty at the very start of the season, you'll be in normal. You just click normal. Once you hit Nightmare, you'll click Nightmare. Once you hit Hell, you'll click Early Hell, right? And you just kind of level with both of these together. And then as you play, you're welcome to click on these and go in and, add some different stuff into them if you would like to. And then of course you have in-game filters. I don't have a way to give you an in-game filter until the season actually starts. So once we get the season going, I've played for a couple of days. At that time, I will be able to provide some in-game filters. And our last section is additional resources. This section really walks you through the best strategies for each phase of your journey. If you're a newer player to Hero Siege, be sure that you read through these first few sections just to gain a better understanding of Hero Siege mechanics and how things work. And also check this section a couple of times before season starts, as I do plan to add some things to it. First up is our beginner guide. If you're newer to Hero Siege, I have a 2.5-hour video that goes through all of the basics from making a character and installing the game to how Ubers work. Be sure you check that video out. There are a few things that you need to know before you get started, like equipping your companion. Everyone gets one of these for free. Be sure you set up your highlight filter. In the video, I do have a full section on the highlight filter. Configure any controls. Here's currently my settings if you would like to copy what mine looks like. I also suggest that you change your minimap hotkey to tab. This will make your minimap overlay permanent, like D2 or Path of Exile, instead of it being something that you have to constantly press. Swap your game to 60 FPS. Even if you have an insane PC, trust me, you're not going to see a difference in your frames, but your performance will be much better. And in order to assign skills, you actually click on the right click skill, and that will open up a menu to assign your skills. Now, there are no required quests in Hero Siege. I do, however, recommend that you complete your Act 1 normal quests. Those are going to give you a mid rune, a ton of the lower runes, a movement speed charm, and a movement speed potion. These are all really nice to have while you're leveling up, especially for being just Act 1 normal. The same thing will happen in Act 1 Nightmare. You'll get up to a Vex rune, as well as a bunch of low runes. And then once you get into Act 1 Hell, you'll get a few mid runes. Same thing for Act 2 Hell, and Act 3 Hell is when you will actually get your first high rune. So those are the quests that I recommend that you complete. In Hero Siege, there's additive damage and skill damage. Additive damage is weapon damage. It is damage that you're gaining when your weapon physically hits an enemy or strikes an enemy. This can be from a ranged weapon, a wand, a sword. It doesn't matter. It's your weapon physically striking a monster is additive damage. It is not multiplicative damage. Skill damage, however, is multiplicative damage. It is giving your skill base damage. So to give you an example of this, there's a skill in Hero Siege called Lightning Fury. It's quite common in a lot of ARPGs. You basically take your big hammer, you strike a mob with it, and a bunch of lightning goes out everywhere and chains to a bunch of monsters. If you had both additive lightning damage and lightning skill damage, the additive lightning damage would be affected when your weapon struck the monster, right? And then the skill damage would be affecting the lightning's damage. So there's two different instances of damage that's happening on that strike. Generally speaking, additive damage is great early game, absolutely terrible in the end game because there's no way to scale it. And skill damage is a little less effective early, but becomes very, very potent as you level through the game and as you get into the end game. If you haven't checked out the Season 7 patch notes, that is available in here. There is an official Hero Siege wiki that's launched recently. This has a ton of information. There's a link to that. Now, once you hit level 100, I do have a section here talking about the early game, giving you progression tips and tricks, because a lot of people are expecting, some mapping system or monolith system, or they're expecting to go somewhere and do repeatable content. And Hero Siege doesn't directly work that way. It has a bit of a different system. So this talks about that system a bit in video form, or I do have the full written guide available here. You can read through all of it to get an idea of what we should be doing in order to progress that early game. Be sure you bookmark the Hero Siege helper website. This has an absolute ton of information in it that's very accessible. I use it all the time. If I need to know, I don't know, like what key goes to what dungeon, I'll just pop this up really quickly and it helps you find that. Here is a YouTube video that talks about this entire website and everything that it offers. He has updated it, I think, a couple of times since the last time I reviewed it. There might be a couple of things here and there that are extra, but very, very good website. Be sure you bookmark it.
And that wraps up this build guide. I hope it helps you get the most out of your Hero Siege experience this season. Whether you're pushing through the early levels or tackling the end game, this setup should give you a solid foundation to build from. If you found this guide helpful, please consider leaving a like and sharing it with others in the community. Drop any questions, feedback, or build suggestions in the comments below. I always enjoy hearing from you guys and helping where I can. I'll also be streaming live on Twitch at twitch.tv/Graxy_TV. You can come check me out there, ask me any questions, and would love to see you. Don't forget to check the description for the full written guide and any additional resources mentioned in the video. And if you'd like to support the channel, even a small donation goes a long way in helping me continue creating quality Hero Siege content. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications so you don't miss any future guides, updates, or seasonal news. Thanks for watching, and as always, happy sieging.